I can't believe I'm saying this, but actually I can believe it. I was right. We're going back to 2016. I know, you guys get really mad whenever I say that in my videos now because I've said it a lot, but we're going right on back. We're going in a whole new age of conservative demagoguery being the peak of internet popularity. It's going to happen, and no doubt a large part of it is going to be this. Twitter agrees to sell itself to Elon Musk. Let's go ahead. Give me the fake news, CNN. Tell me what's up. Whoa! She was about to say the N-word. Jesus Christ. That's what I get for turning the video down to 0.1 speed. I had the video auto preset to 0.1 speed, and it sounded like she was about to say the N-word. I got so scared. I got so fucking scared. Jesus Christ. Let's watch.
Breaking news right now. Elon Musk is buying Twitter for an estimated $44 billion. Let's get right to CNN chief media correspondent Brian Stelter and CNN reporter Matt Egan. Okay, let's start with you, Matt. This wasn't going to happen. It was on, it was off, it was off. Now what?
It's on. It's on. This means that the world's richest man is going to effectively control one of the most influential platforms in the internet.
I love that people are praising this as a revolution of like freedom and free speech. Ah, yes, the world's richest man having full control and privatizing the largest platform in the world. That's very much that's freedom right there.
This was weeks after Elon Musk, launched this hostile bid to try to acquire Twitter. There was a lot of resistance. A lot of people were betting against it. Now the board has come out and they say that they've reached a deal. Elon's going to buy the company for $54.20 in cash. It values Twitter at about $4 billion. The deal is expected to close later this year. In a lot of ways, this is classic Elon Musk. I mean, everyone was skeptical that he could pull this off, that he's going to have the cash. Is he even being serious here? He is being serious, and now they have a deal.
He's been critical of Twitter for quite a long time now. How do we get to this point now that it's his?
Well, number one, he showed he had the financing a few days ago. Yeah. He started to woo large shareholders, large investors, and that's why over the weekend, Twitter's board had to sit down with him, strike a deal overnight that finally was announced a few minutes ago. So how do we get to this point? Well, here is someone who was able to prove he could actually do this, prove he could bring the company private, and now, barring any hiccups, it is his. He does say in a statement here, free speech is the bedrock of a functioning democracy, and Twitter is the digital town square where matters vital to the future of humanity are debated. So in his mind, this is very serious and has been all along. He says he wants to make Twitter better than ever by, quote, enhancing the product with new features, making the algorithms open source to increase trust, defeating the spam bots, he says, and authenticating all humans. So he is approaching this in the same way.
The authenticating all humans thing sounds a little worrying because that sounds like a little bit like we're going to have to give up a little bit of our anonymity to Twitter and have some of our information sold, isn't it? Yeah, Elon Musk is going to be selling our information. Listen, to be completely clear here, this is a business move from Elon Musk. It is a business move with most likely a hint of a need for attention. Elon Musk has always obviously been an attention whore, and right now he's obviously coming out of his divorce, and he's clearly not exactly in a good place in his life right now emotionally, so it doesn't surprise me that he'd do something like this to sort of force the world to pay attention to him. When you do something like this, you're essentially forcing the world to not only pay attention to you in like the short term, but in the long term too. Like, Elon Musk is functionally going to become Twitter's new Trump. I mean, assuming Trump doesn't come back, which he said he won't. Though how true that is questionable because Elon Musk has confirmed he's going to unban Trump, but Trump says he won't come back. Whether or not Elon Musk is actually going to follow through on these hyper free speech principles is questionable. We're going to finish this video and I'm going to tell you guys what I think the 3 most likely outcomes are and which one I think is the most likely and why for each of them. Yeah, let's finish this.
He approaches Tesla and SpaceX. He's on a mission. He wants to save the digital planet, and in his mind, Twitter is critical to that.
Except that we're all more affected by this than we are SpaceX and Tesla. This affects all of us in terms of misinformation. How will this change our lives? And when he says open it up to free speech, does that allow more misinformation on the platform?
I think we're going to have to see what he does and exactly what rules he decides to follow or not follow. There are obviously local and state and federal laws all around the world that apply to these platforms. He's going to have to follow at least some of those rules, I would expect. So I think it remains to be seen.
Yeah.
It does, and he hasn't really released any details, any specifics.
That's more or less the important parts of it. All right, it's time to talk about the shit you're really here for, okay? We gotta talk about the possibilities, okay? Okay, there are potential endings to this, okay? There are several potential endings, so to say. You know how like in a video game that lets you choose your own like choices and whatnot, it'll have like multiple endings, and those endings are usually reinforced by the decisions you made throughout the story's narrative? Okay. As all of you know, I'm pretty known for like predicting the future, right? Like I'm pretty good at saying this is what I think is going to happen down the line, and then it tends to happen down the line. Do you guys agree with that? Hypers, if you agree. Hypers, if you would agree with me there. Yeah. Okay. Good. So what we're gonna do here is a little bit of prediction. We are going to predict, or I'm going to try to predict, the three what I consider to be most likely outcomes of this whole Elon Musk buying Twitter thing, why I think they are likely to occur, and which one I think is most likely to actually occur. Let's talk about the bad ending, okay? This is the bad ending, basically, more or less. Like the worst possible ending whatsoever, and that's like the worst possible line of events, okay? The first one. Elon basically gets, well, we're just going to do small bullet points, gets rid of TOS altogether, basically. It's very possible that Elon Musk just gets rid of TOS. It's extremely unlikely, and I'll explain why in a moment, but this would be the bad ending. Elon Musk gets rid of TOS. Now, this could range anywhere from a complete dissolving of it, which would be never would happen, or a dissolving of, for example, the rules against misinformation, rules against discrimination based on identity, rules against like spreading of like stuff like that, stuff that he will claim is like cracking down on free speech. What the fuck? Getting rid of the TOS in large part would absolutely be a pretty big problem, whether it be like some of it or a lot of it. Pretty big problem. Unban Nazis. Basically, everybody who's been unbanned for the worst possible behavior on Twitter in the past gets unbanned. There's essentially no more accountability for the actions of the worst types of people in the political space anymore. They are completely able to indoctrinate people without any like consequences whatsoever. They're allowed to spread lies, misinformation, cause demonstrable harm to people and the world, and there's absolutely nothing that anybody can do about it. Worst case scenario, right wing dominates Twitter. If it gets to the point where you can just actively engage in harassment against any minority group that you like, because it's just just opinion on whether or not you think black people are human or trans people shouldn't kill themselves, or shouldn't kill themselves. It's just an opinion. If Elon Musk decides to push the TOS to that level of free speech dedication, then it's very possible that just getting all your friends together and telling a trans person they should kill themselves and doxing them could very well be allowed on Twitter at that point. These possibilities are very unlikely. I find this to probably be the least likely outcome. Okay? This is the least likely outcome, is the bad ending. All right? Now for what I consider to be the second most likely scenario, and that is the good ending. I think the good ending is probably the second most likely scenario, okay? The good ending. The TOS stays the same because of the profit motive. Twitter gets all sorts of dope desired features Twitter improves overall. Now, why do I even consider an improvement of Twitter as a possibility under Elon Musk's control? Well, the list of things that he suggested that he wants to do with Twitter outside of the free speech bullshit, the free speech absolutist bullshit, does sound like pretty good stuff, like making the algorithm open source so that everybody can see it, defeating like the bot problems on the platform. I do agree with a lot of those things. It's very possible that a lot of the features that come about on Twitter could be massive improvements. Maybe this new ownership will see some thinking outside of the box. I think it's more likely than the like horror show that is this scenario, though. Now let's go to the most likely scenario, let's be real, and that's like the neutral ending, so to say. If these are opposite sides of the spectrum, good and bad, then the most likely scenario is probably this middle one, okay? The TOS changes. I think most likely we are not going to see hate speech in the form that it is punishable now, punished on Twitter in the future. Only time can tell. These are just my speculations. This is literally just me making predictions. I think we'll see small changes specifically having to do with misinformation and specifically having to do with hate speech and whatnot. I think that hate speech will essentially no longer be a thing as far as Twitter is concerned. And it is very, very possible that the TOS will change what it considers to be harassment or unacceptable behavior towards others. How that will affect Twitter financially is questionable. But at the very least, we'll see anywhere from the TOS changing to laxing TOS reinforcement. I feel like those... I'm not going to try with that word. Laxing TOS. We'll just call it that. Anyway, nobody like some larger conservative figures get unbanned for the press. I have no doubt in my mind that at least a few large conservative figures that have been banned in the past from Twitter are going to be unbanned after Elon Musk takes control. It won't be like an overwhelming everybody gets unbanned, like they fucking unsnapped everybody in Avengers Endgame or whatever, and everyone gets unbanned. Everyone gets a second chance or whatever. I don't think it'll be like that. I think it's more so going to be that a few very large right-wing figures will be allowed to return to Twitter with essentially no issues. And it's going to be like a very big cultural thing. And I think this is probably going to be the big one. Right wing almost dominates Twitter. I think the left will probably continue to have its own little spaces because I think the ability for, especially with how lax I think the Twitter TOS will get in the most likely scenario, I think that as long as the left can form some like pretty defensible communities and whatnot, I think there will still be like communities to be carved out on Twitter for like left-wing people after all of this. But no doubt a lot of people, especially part of marginalized groups, assuming the TOS does change in this way, if you're trans, if you're POC, high likelihood you're probably not going to be on Twitter anymore. At least not as much if, just being able to call you the N-word and tell you to kill yourself is something that Twitter's totally fine with upon Elon Musk taking control. Now, I do have one little PSA, I guess you could say. A PSA, I guess is a good way to describe it. I have a PSA for all of you. Stop doing the I'm going to leave Twitter thing. It's very cringe, and it is essentially the equivalent of when people said they're going to move to Canada when Trump won. That's my take. People who are saying they're leaving Twitter are the same as people who said they're moving to Canada when Trump won. It's the same exact thing, and it looks equally as cringe, okay? It looks equally as cringe, all right? You need to stop doing that kind of shit. Stop virtue signaling about how you hate... Like how you're leaving Twitter now because Elon Musk bought it. You don't want to support Twitter. You don't want to support Elon. I'm sorry. Twitter is the largest platform in the world. Don't start shilling for like Twitter alternative platforms now. That's the funny thing too. Listen, we've been making fun of alt Twitter right-wing platforms for like years now, and now like lefties are shilling for alt Twitter platforms now. And it's like, what are you doing? What the fuck are you doing? Just adapt. You can't change the internet. Stop trying to change the internet. Guys, if you take anything from this, please remember one thing. No matter what you do, you cannot change the internet. You can't. It's not possible. You can't change the internet. You can only adapt to it. And what's happening here is the left is having an inability to adapt to the internet, okay? I'm sorry, but the field of political guys, as far as Twitter is concerned, slurs are on the table now. Very likely. It's possible. If Elon Musk does make the changes I think he might make as far as like laxing on the TOS, slurs just being a thing you can post on Twitter very well may be on the table now. We might enter a new age of Twitter where cancel culture really doesn't have any power outside of shaming people emotionally. Like, it's very possible now that cancel culture, as far as like mass reporting someone to get them banned, is now no longer a thing on Twitter. You can't shame conservatives. They don't care about us. That's true. Well, regardless, though, with all that said, guys, thank you so much for watching. It has been a good-ass fucking segment. Anyway, with all that said, if you enjoyed the segment, please consider leaving a like, subscribe, ring the bell icon if you're new and you haven't seen me before and you want to see more content from me. Also, if you want to support my channel and see more from me, as well as just generally, like, help boost my channel in the algorithm, consider dropping a like. YouTube values community engagement more than ever right now, so it definitely helps. With all that said, thank you all so much for watching. If you want to support me financially, you can do so on my website, YouTube, Stream Elements, Streamlabs, or through Patreon. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and have a good one.